Good day, monkeys. I'm Eddie Braverman. He's Midas Mulligan Magoo. And this is episode 16 of Not Safe for Work on WallStreetOasis.com. This week we're discussing Libya, Wisconsin, and the wealth gap in America. So let's get after it. There's some pretty heavy shit going down in Libya right now, and it looks like Gaddafi's on his way out. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. But I'm left with a couple of questions about his exit strategy. Here's a couple things you might not know about the guy. First, he's worth about $35 billion personally, and the reports I'm reading says he's managed to move at least $5 billion of that out of the country already. So enough to live comfortably anywhere in the world. Second, he took over Libya when he was only 27 years old. Now think about that for a minute. Imagine your average WSO reader in charge of an OPEC country.
Exit ops in the house.
As easy as it would be for him to walk away and spend the rest of his life in luxury, I bet he won't do it. He's living proof that you can take the thug out of the ghetto, but you can't take the ghetto out of the thug. I'm thinking he still thinks of himself as that 27-year-old Scarface wannabe, and he probably thinks it'd be really gangster to go out in a hail of bullets. What do you think, Midas?
I'm not gonna get on Gaddafi because I think that's a show on its own. But as he's about to unleash his missiles on the public, I'd like to actually refocus the lens on ourselves a little bit. We Americans love to talk shit as long as it's not our ass in the oven. This is a far cry from endorsing Gaddafi because he is a nut and he is a cartoon character. But let's stop and think about, do we really want revolutions in the MENA region? I mean, are they really beneficial to the world at large? We love to talk about democracy and people fighting for freedom, but we have the 54th ranked free press on earth. I mean, you won't hear a frank discussion on any important subjects anywhere near the American media. So who are we really to go out and call out, despots throughout the world for the way they run their circus? I just want to bring up the point that every place we've vanquished a tyrant over the past 20 years, whether it's the Balkans or in Baghdad, we always talk about democracies, but we see the rising up of new despotic regimes, new oligarchies, new cultures of crime. And I'm all for freedom and self-determination, but we still haven't seen anything in Tunisia or Egypt or Libya that gives any hint of actual democracy occurring. I mean, we see nothing that's showing us that there might be something different than the predecessors that are supposedly on the way out. I mean, let's face it, some of these places need their megalomaniac warlords to run them. I'd like the world to be polarized too, but it's not, and it can never be what the globalists want it to be. So, when a man is the state for decades, like it or not, that state may not be ready to stand alone without him. So as bad a guy as he is, as big a clown as he is, things are probably going to be a lot worse when he goes, and nobody really wants to address that.
It's a good point. I mean, you don't have to look any further than Iraq to see,
Look at it.
Hussein is a total dickbag, no question about it, but, man, he kept that place...
Exactly.
He kept the trains running on time, right?
He
I mean,
did.
it's like, we go in there and depose this guy, and it's turned into a total fuck story, and I don't really want to get into that, but, yeah, you make a solid point.
And who's going to pay for that shitstorm? Again, it comes down to the taxpayers. So,
right. Well, speaking about a fuck story closer to home, you guys have asked us to comment on Wisconsin, and it's however you happen to feel about the union issue, whether it's good, bad, but first of all, I think it's really chicken shit for any elected official to tuck tail and run to another state to avoid a vote just because you're going to lose. I mean, that's just bullshit.
And Illinois, of all places. Come on.
Well, right, yeah, exactly. It happened a few years ago in Texas over some redistricting, and it was Democrats fleeing the vote that time, too. That's not to say that Republicans aren't just as callow and spineless. But these guys need to come to grips with the fact that they lost the fucking election for a reason. Sorry, we hit a gap there in our connection. So, these guys lost the election for a reason. I mean, your ideology is no longer acceptable to the majority of the voters in your state. People aren't stupid for the most part, and they have an interest in saving the ship before it goes down. Union labor's been gaming the system for decades longer than the protection unions provide has been necessary. I mean, seriously, you don't You don't have 8-year-olds working in sweatshops in Milwaukee anymore. You gotta go to Queens if you want to see that shit. It's about time the unions are brought to heel. What do you think?
Man, I think the fact that you use the words protection and union in the same sentence sheds a lot bigger light than any point we're going to make today on the subject. I hate unions. It's like you pointed out, they're a relic of a non-existent past and a drain on pretty much anybody who doesn't pay dues to them. The only thing I hate more than unions is a big, intrusive, violent, bully government. But that having been said, when a government actually seeks to step up and lead and regulate and fix the mistakes of prior governments, that's something that should be applauded, and it's called leadership. So anyone willing to step up and lead in these sort of lethargic times gets nothing but a vote of confidence for me. Scott Walker's doing the dirty work, and he's definitely going to take the heat for it. You know, some of these prank calls and these ridiculous things that he's being subjugated to now are just a perfect example.
You know what though? That shows his inexperience though. That he walks into a situation like that, and I don't honestly know enough about the guy to really form an opinion about him. But when a guy calls you up claiming to be coke, you don't think maybe you say, you know what? Can I call you right back?
I hear you, but at the same time, I'm not electing him to be the guy that fucks all the tens at the bar. I'm electing him to be honest and to work hard. If that means he gets made a clown of on TV, that's fine, but that has jack shit to do with the issue. The issue is that teachers' unions are the biggest fucking special interest group in terms of campaign donations in America. Bigger than Big Oil, bigger than Wall Street. They gave Obama $100 million 2 years ago. They give about $100 million every single election. They cannot be treated like there's some kind of innocent, bunch of Susie homemakers, teaching reading class 2 hours a day. Come on. You work 8 months out of the year. You should get paid 8 months out of the year. You should shut the fuck up and be happy about it. But they still want more. So appropriately, kids are learning less, being challenged less in school. All the standardized test results are poor. What are you guys bringing to the table? Jack shit. So unless we're going to have quid pro quo, shut up and take your slaps. If America's going to be a force in the 21st century like it was in the 20th, entitlement's got to go out the window. And that's the end of the story.
Yeah, well, teaching is life's plan B, right?
Exactly.
All right, dude. Well, you wrote a post about the wealth gap this week that's gotten somewhere around 300 comments so far.
Ridiculous.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
First of all, let me give a shout out to my boy Monkey Sama. Dude, you waged a pretty impressive one-man offensive in the comments on that thread, and I just want to let you know that I support your position. I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but you hit the nail on the head with a couple of points you made, and don't take all the monkey shit personally. It's no secret that the wealth gap in America is out of control, but it's also nothing to lose sleep over either. But what you guys need to realize is that you're here for roughly 75 years, barring any fatal accidents or illnesses. And it doesn't really matter if you spend that time rich or poor, or somewhere in the middle. I'm going to go into further detail on this in one of my posts during Man Week, but the takeaway is this. You're not going to save the world, so, kick back and find some enjoyment in the time that you have here. Not everyone needs to be a billionaire. What do you think, dude?
A man at peace with his mortality. Well, fuck you, fuckball. I want my McMansion and my gold latte. No, there's always a topic that gets people's blood boiling, and it's ridiculous to try to convince either side of the aisle of anything. You pick your side, and that's the side you're on. That's fine with me. But that having been said, as a guy who preaches some pretty laissez-faire capitalist ideas from time to time, I want to actually look at the sort of quote-unquote socialist point of view. Does the America we've been hearing about forever really exist? We keep hearing about a shrinking middle class, but I don't even see it anymore. I don't think it's there. Somebody actually commented in that thread, I believe, that all he wants to do is make $800K a year and be upper middle class. That's fucking nuts! 90% of the public in the richest country on earth should not be averaging $30K a year, no matter how you spin it. I mean, you travel the world, you see some disturbing shit. You got people in second world and arguably even some third world countries living a better quality of life than many Americans. I mean, this of course is in direct proportion to our money worship that you alluded to. But the truth is that these people up in the 1% range are not that irreplaceable, nor do they deliver that much utility. I mean, the truth is that, the symbiotic relationship of government and the biggest businesses has gotten so far out of whack that young, industrious, and in many cases superior competitors are being completely frozen out. I mean, we have a very, very, very anemic entrepreneurial drive in comparison to previous generations, and that is what's hurting us. It's not even the printing presses of monopoly money so much. The truth is, if we don't create new opportunities, new businesses, new wealth, there's not going to be any recovery and any improvements and any better quality of life long term, despite of whatever stories, we're spinning to each other on a daily basis. So we shouldn't really be focusing that much on whether the gap exists, but on how to narrow it, and via hard work, not excuses and not arguments. Just some food for thought.
Yeah, see, I don't see a rebirth of the middle class anytime soon. I see us in this sort of technocratic revolution that started with the internet, and you're gonna see a lot of kids with brains and that are sharp. They might go from the bottom of the lower classes and just get vaulted into the upper classes, but they're not going to stop at middle. You provide an idea like Foursquare or, some other dipshit internet thing that catches fire. You might be working out of your garage one day, and the next day, you're a billionaire. Look at Zuckerberg. But I just don't see a lot of people landing in the middle. Like, there's factory jobs. Are you kidding me?
Forget it.
You're not going from being a paper boy to being an auto worker anymore. It just doesn't exist.
No, and I think a lot of these guys are really fooling themselves. That's why I think we got to bring it up to our audience. Like, listen, maybe you're going to be Zuckerberg, but for every Zuckerberg, there's a million other suckers out there who are just propping up the Ponzi scheme. So think about whether that's really where you want to be. But moving right along to the book selections, I think it's kind of appropriate to talk about the Clue Train Manifesto, which I'm betting a lot of you guys haven't heard of. It's from the dinosaur ages of me and Eddie's time 10 years ago. But it was the revolutionary business book at the time, and it outlined how business would change for the better in the internet era. And it's mostly marketing focused, but a lot of this stuff applies to finance and all industries. And I think it's just a great read for both its ideas and how they looked at that time, and for the way it inadvertently illustrates how quickly ideas and notions are becoming obsolete in this world. So with every passing day, I have less of a desire to discuss some of these topics, which no longer have any relevance that we go so crazy about, such as who's rich and who's poor. Even though the establishments of the world push these ideas down our throat, like your parents did the Brussels sprouts at dinner, you gotta stop and ask yourself at one point, what does this shit really mean, and is it really relevant to you? That's all for me for now. Until Man Week, Eddie.
All right, well, this might be counterintuitive to what I said in the last segment, but this is a book I've recommended on the site before, and it's one you definitely should read. The book is How to Get Rich by Felix Dennis. And it actually doesn't run counter to my advice, because the author, who founded Maxim magazine, advises you not to even try to get rich, because it's, number one, it's not worth the effort, and number two, you'll probably fail anyway. I know that doesn't sound like a ringing endorsement for a book, but if you want pie in the sky, go read any one of the million of get-rich-quick books out there on the market. But if you want real hard entrepreneurial advice with a healthy dose of gallows humor, read this book. So that's all I've got for this week. Keep your heads down and your powder dry, and we'll see you next week on Not Safe for Work.
Take it easy,
Stay classy, WSO. See you soon.